Hi everyone, this is Jessica Manchester. I have been getting a lot of questions and struggles with math from a handful of you this year, and so I just wanted to create a brief presentation for you guys to give you a little bit of support. So I want to make it really clear that this isn't really specifically Go Math support and help. If you need that, let me know and we can talk about that at another time. This is a little bit more of a zoomed out, general way to look at math and to teach math. Probably a lot of this will be not new to you, but perhaps just reminding you, and even if you just get a little nugget of something in here, hopefully something can be at least of a little help to you. Okay, so here are a lot of the questions that I've been getting from you guys. How do I fit everything into my math block? There's so much to teach. Yes, there is. How do I reach all my students? This is probably the biggest one. How do I make sure that I get to those low students? And then how do I make sure I get to those really high achieving students and challenge them appropriately? There's also been a lot of questions about small groups. Should I do them? How should I do them? How do I do them with classroom management? How do I give them stuff to do without spending hours in prep? And then I've also gotten some of, I feel like Go Math is really boring, or I'm really boring when I teach it. So let's just kind of talk about some of these things. I'm not going to solve the world's problems with these things, but again, hopefully just give you a few helpful tips. So just so that you are aware, kind of a district-wide long-term future goal we have that I want you to be aware of is part of the goal of our unit planning and curriculum mapping is the desire to locate and or design supports for students at all levels of learning for all units of learning. So taking chapter 1 of your Go Math curriculum and finding things that you can use for your lower students and your higher students. Perhaps that's preparing a project or something for them throughout the unit. And so that is the goal in your ILTs this year and next, is to continue working and finding those things. And then we hope to take those and to take them one step deeper. And once these curriculum maps are done, we can use them to help inform our instruction. We can use map data to help us see where we're still lacking. And so I will put in the plug here that Go Math really does have tons of stuff that you can use. I'm sure many of you are aware of it, but they do have reteaches and enrichment worksheets for every lesson. And those are really helpful. They have other technology enrichments and things as well. And I know you guys know about IXL and probably you know about Khan Academy. So we have lots of resources. So if you have questions about those, like I said, let me know and we can look more into those together. So let's first talk about small groups a little bit. So again, some of this might not be new to many of you, but there are many things to consider. And I think sometimes we get stuck on just forming groups and doing rotations and taking up a lot of time. And you want at least probably 10 or 15 minutes for each rotation, and that gets really time consuming. So get away from that traditional rotation thinking and let's try to be a little bit more creative. So to form groups, you might form groups based on your MAP percentile scores. You might do achievement in this unit. Perhaps you do the show what you know at the beginning of the chapter and you see that some students have pretty much got this and some students are struggling. You can group them that way. Or you could even, for older grades, potentially allow them to select their own group based on their understanding. So if they still need help, they choose to come to you or they choose not to. So that obviously takes a little more management and instruction, but all of those could be options. You can do traditional rotations where students physically rotate to multiple stations. That might be more appropriate in primary. Or they might have activities or rotations, but they stay in one spot. And it's really more like independent work where they work on different things, but they switch at given times. One thing I did is having some kind of week-long rotation or where you just have rotations 2 to 3 days a week where, okay, students, I want you to finish this checklist of work this week. It is your responsibility to use this time wisely to get that done. So in that regard, it's not even rotations at all. It's just differentiated independent work. But hopefully some of those ideas might help you to see how other people might do these things. As for activities, this one probably isn't as hard, but I've included just a few other ideas. I think the biggest thing that we are aiming to get in small groups is to meet with teacher, is we want to be everywhere at once. We want to make sure that we're meeting with our low students as much as possible 5 times a week, if at least, and then at least 1 or 2 times a week for our higher students. But that tends to be the goal of small group work, is the opportunity for us to work with students. Independent work from lesson workbook, you can do differentiated quantities of these. You can have some students do all of the problems. Some students will spend the whole time doing 2 problems. So that can be another way to differentiate. You can also include enrichment activities from outside resources such as games, puzzles. I have a couple of examples that I really liked here. You'll see on this side here that I found some menu boards for students to do, and this is a 2nd grade TPT packet that I found, and it has one menu board for each unit. So there's one on place value and clocks and time, and that's the same thing, but money and addition and subtraction. So that might be a way to give students some autonomy and freedom for enrichment activities, and they can do those. You can see today's number. I don't know if you've seen this before, but you select a number and then students will write it in these 12 different ways. So they write it in expanded form, word form, they add 72, and that's just practicing all of these fluency things in math. So that's a really good rotation that helps with looping and spiraling review. A couple other things you'll see here is this is an example at the top of how a teacher does her rotations. And so she allows students to choose which station they go to at a time, but they have to get a certain number of done. So she has students do the teacher's choice, and she has them do the spiral review every single day. And then they get to choose math facts versus challenge, or maybe she more finitely assigns those. But this is just a way, an idea to see, to try to simplify things so that you don't have to do like 4 or 5 different lesson plans for your small groups, but to just think through, okay, what do I want my students to get in a week of math? And think, okay, what do these students who are a little bit higher need? Okay, they probably only need to meet with me once or twice. So how can I make that work? Okay, these students need to meet with me every day, potentially the whole time during small groups, and that's perfectly fine. So just make those adjustments and think through, what do each of my students need? And then try to meet those needs kind of in bulk as much as you can. So hopefully that's making sense, and maybe hopefully that's a few different ideas. The last thing I included on here is a math performance task. I like these generic things where you make one thing once and then it's a lot simpler to use in the future, but this is where they solve the problem and then they explain it. Writing in math, as we'll get to in a second, is a really, really quick, easy, and terrific enrichment activity. And so that can be another thing where you have this math performance task, but then you change the problem. And so it's a quick, easy assignment for you to make. And then it's in a structured way that the kids know how to use and can get used to it and hopefully won't need your help in the future. So hopefully these are a few helpful things that you might be able to adapt for yourself and your kids. So this slide is probably not super new to you, but perhaps it is. And as frustrating as it is, sometimes I know, at least I want to teach math. But it is our job to teach our kids some executive functioning skills. And studies really show that there's so much math anxiety among all students, even through college. And so helping with math anxiety can really help alleviate some of the success issues that we have in students debilitating anxiety that a lot of students and even teachers I know have when it comes to math. And so if you can give students the skills and model those skills to help students to move past those difficulties, that can really improve the achievement in math of a lot of students. So this might include retesting. I know we do this a lot, but encouraging students with that, using that as, hey, it's okay. This test is not the end of the world. Teaching them deep breathing techniques, that can be a really helpful thing. Teaching them those strategies, how to skip or break down different problems, or if this problem is really freaking you out, just skip it and then come back later. That's perfectly okay. And then pacing. So you have an hour to take this test. It is 2 pages. So, and kind of helping them break that down to realize that they don't have to panic. And then of course, teaching that growth mindset. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this yet. And really being a bit of a drill sergeant around that, because that is your own language, that is their language, and then you teach them that. And just not accepting the conversations or the statements like, I'm not good at math. Just shut those down. And so that can actually really help with math achievement. It's also important to teach them those strategies that you expect them to do in math often. Teach them how to work with a partner. Teach them how to ask questions. How do you form a question that can get answered in the way that you want it? That's hard for even some adults. So teaching these functioning skills can really help improve math achievement and skills. So let's talk about vocabulary instruction. I know that we all do it at the very least a little bit, but I want to really encourage you and hammer how important vocabulary instruction is, especially in math, because as you know, if I understand what division is, it's going to help me actually understand how to do division. And so vocabulary and concepts really go hand in hand. So I really encourage you to do these vocabulary things perhaps one step deeper. Maybe you go over them, but maybe you have students write them down, read them out loud, act them out. Perhaps you underline vocabulary words and problems. I love when I see like anchor charts up at the front of the room for students to refer to whenever they want. The Frayer model is the top picture I have here where you put the word. You write the definition, characters, examples, and non-examples. I think this is so great for math, especially the examples and non-examples. That can be something that's really helpful to really grasp those deeper level understandings of the vocabulary words and thus the math skills. Practice identifying the words using examples and simple games. That's probably something many of you already do. Like I said, building anchor charts together. And then word maps or other kinds of webs like that can also really help to get the words related. They can help to see, oh, division, dividend, quotient, divisor, and they can really see how those words relate. You can also differentiate a lot with this as well. Flashcards with lower level students, and then have students write stories or paragraphs or pretend they are the teacher and describe these words. So there's different ways to kind of spread this out to make sure that your vocabulary instruction really enhances your math instruction. So this is another one that's probably a little bit duh, but I wanted to explain some of the research. So research shows that gifted learners, and especially visual spatial learners, for some reason, really relate to real world application problems. And so if you can, and I've seen this done by some of you, and I think it's awesome, where you put your own kids' names into the word problems. I love that. And applying the problems that students are doing to their own culture, heritage, language, their hobbies, their experiences, their families, all of these really help to make the math tangible and real to them. And even just kind of that real world social justice, like if they have a mission to solve a problem or to solve, perhaps it's a project for addition talking about children hunger in Africa, and it can be a deeper level, a deeper issue. Sometimes that can help with motivation and engagement, especially for those gifted or visual spatial learners, according to research. And then many of you use it, maybe not, but there is the performance task in your online database for GoMath, and it is really cool. It's a several page project where students are doing the math skills, but it is one cohesive project. So maybe they are planning a circus or something, and then they have to use the skills that they've gotten in this chapter to do that. And so that would be a real good way to use something like that. So we definitely do this a little bit at Cascade, but I think we could really jump in and do it more because it is so beneficial. And it's hard and it's scary, which is why a lot of even us don't like to do it, but it is so beneficial. Writing promotes critical thinking and deeper learning to a huge degree. So considering ways that you can incorporate writing into your math instruction is a really good way to differentiate. It's also a really good way to develop that deeper learning and deeper understanding. It also helps students with writing in the working world and in the future. So if you have students who want to be engineers, computer programs, etc., it is helpful for them to practice this style of writing because math is its own language. So this is another way that you can really scaffold and support students. You don't want writing itself to be the challenge in this context because you're not teaching them how to write per se by itself in math, but it can certainly be a thing as a means to an end to help them understand the math better. So even simple things such as note-taking can help them, but challenging them, don't just copy mine, but give them a minute to write a sentence or two about what you just talked about. So we just did a subtraction problem. Write the steps real quick. Pretend like you're explaining it to a kindergartner. Write the steps real quick of how to subtract. So taking it a level deeper, making them do the thinking, that's the kind of note-taking I'm referring to here, but general note-taking is good as well, of course. And then it also integrates vocabulary and mathematical ideas to make math real, relevant to them now. So this is a great way to scaffold and to hit all levels of writing. I'm going to show you a little bit in the next slide, but scaffolding, having perhaps writing frames for some students, and then some students might be able to just get a blank sheet of paper and go nuts. But something such as subtraction is blank. And then if you need to fill it in even more for a student, these are the steps. Step 1, place the numbers vertically one on top of the other. So maybe you fill in a little bit more for some of your students who struggle, and then you fill in less for students who are higher achieving, but that can be a good way to scaffold and support students and to promote that deeper learning. So here are some examples of scaffolding. This is a really quick, really easy way to hit those lower achieving students and those higher achieving students and everybody in between. So you'll see to the left some subtraction. So you'll see a complete frame where the hundreds, tens, and ones are sorted already and the squares are there. The borrowing or taking away, whatever, is all there, and it puts those numbers there. If students are still really struggling with that, you could even go ahead and put some of the numbers into the top and bottom if that helps them. That can give them confidence along the way to help them know that they're doing things right, and then they can check within the problem before they finish the whole problem and get the answer wrong. They can check within the problem to see what they did wrong and check their work. So that can be a really helpful and confidence booster to a lot of kids. And then of course work to take those out. On the bottom you see there then even just providing a blank frame for kids to use 3 digits minus 2 digits, that can help them figure out, oh yeah, I need to put these vertically to help me to begin. Long division is a notorious problem chapter in 4th grade, lots of tears. But you can see on the top there, what if you provided students with something like this scaffold to begin with? Maybe you start with the whole class. They can see the answer, but you can demonstrate the importance of the steps, and then the steps can help them check their work and support them on the way to that quotient. And then as you see, the next one down shows the frame, but they have to fill in the numbers. And of course, there's things to do in between this. And so this is a really helpful, quick way. You can even just print a worksheet and white out some of the numbers, or print a teacher key even and white out some of the numbers. So hopefully this is my favorite way to differentiate. My favorite thing on the bottom this isn't a great visual, but this is the operations for fractions. And so it shows you the frame that students could put in. You could even print this and laminate it, and you put the numbers in if you are adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing the fractions, and it guides you through the steps. So that's another scaffold that you could use that I think is really helpful for students. And then of course work to take those things away, but to begin, that can really help build students' confidence, and then you don't have to spend quite as much time with those students if they have those supports in place already. So, not surprisingly, research shows that personalized instruction is the best way to help all students, and to especially help students as they struggle and are potentially behind grade level. So the reason I included this slide is I really wanted to just encourage you to tap into the resources that are provided, especially IXL, Waggle, anything that you can do to personalize instruction for students. Of course, this doesn't mean planning 25 lesson plans for your students. Don't do that, but just tapping into those resources. Maybe if you use IXL simply as additional practice, maybe talk to me about how you could use that for more personalized instruction to really hit students' needs, especially if you have students that are severely behind grade level. It can be highly beneficial to have them go back and build those foundational essential standards and skills that they might have missed. So tap into those, become an expert in those, and really use those. Again, this should go without saying, but these things provide scaffolds for you, so you don't have to monitor that whole process. It slowly fades the prompts and supports, which is ultimately what we want. We want students to be able to master these things independently. It provides meaningful practice, and it can give timely feedback. Another great free resource is Khan Academy. They have videos and examples and things. I know the high schoolers use that a lot. So that can be something that really helps you and helps students and parents to potentially build those skills, get personalized practice to make sure that they are catching up and learning what they need to learn. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is a big buzzword in education right now because it really hits and ensures that it helps with that differentiating, but it's universal. And so it provides teachers with some strategies to hit all of their students' needs, but to not spend all of the time differentiating. So this could be its own presentation in and of itself, but basically UDL is including multiple forms of engagement, multiple forms of representation, and action and expression. You guys, when I come into your classrooms, you blow me away with how well you know your students. So use that. So think through in any lesson, and this would become a habit to you if you start to do this well. So think through what would help your students that struggle the most to gain mastery over this content. So again, I'm coming from intermediate grades, so I'm thinking multiplication of 2 digits times 2 digits. How could I help even my lowest student be able to accomplish this skill? Well, I'm going to give her some manipulatives, some base 10 blocks. I might give her those scaffolds that I was looking at. I might give her some notes that are already partially filled in. I might come up with a Khan Academy video that her parents can use with her to help her. So I'm thinking through that, and many of you do this by default, but why not give that to a lot of your students, if not all of your students, at least to begin with? What if you set yourself up to start with a lot of supports and have them ready and prepared, and then to gradually take those things away? Same mindset on the other end. What would keep your most student who's the highest, what would keep them engaged? And so thinking, what do they need? And then what, in terms of behavior, what would keep your most challenging students behave? So perhaps you have a student who is quite wiggly. Perhaps you need to give that kiddo more manipulatives, or you need to allow him to stand up. Well, why don't you let your whole class stand up for a few minutes? So just trying to be creative to think, okay, what do the students in the extreme situations need? And then how can I think ahead and equip myself for teaching this lesson for all of those students? Again, so multiple forms of engagement, multiple forms of representation, letting students say the answers out loud, letting them write it on a whiteboard, letting them see it on your overhead or whiteboard, letting them hear it from your mouth, letting them hear it from a video. So all of those things can help with the learning, and so also help you, perhaps, hopefully, as you get better at implementing UDL and thinking in terms of this, it can help save you time in the long run. So some other things that go into this area would be develop self-assessment and reflection. At the end of a lesson, have your kids put a number or a thumbs up, thumbs to the middle, or thumbs down just on their chest at the end of the lesson. How are you feeling about today's lesson? And they put it on their chest so nobody but you can see it. Help them to assess and reflect how they're doing and their learning and what they need. You can promote expectations and beliefs that optimize motivation. So know about brain science and how students are motivated. Perhaps you do a dance when you're learning how to count by threes. Perhaps you do jumping jacks when you're practicing basic multiplication facts. So how can you optimize motivation? How can you make things fun, if even for your most challenging student, but probably most of your students would like doing jumping jacks. So just thinking through those things. We all know this and we all wish we could do it better, but hands-on and visual activities. There's so many resources in the world, but print those things out, pay for those, ask for help if you need help cutting those, laminating those. Start small and take, maybe you incorporate one game per week, one game per month, whatever is something that doesn't totally overwhelm you, and just have those things made and make them well. Ask for parent volunteers. Would anybody like to cut these out and cut the laminated pieces out for me? Do one thing a week, and then you build up this arsenal that you then have on hand, and then next year you don't have to make them and you can continue to build that. That is worth your time if you can make it work. And then a great sentence to get in the habit of using is, can you explain that to me? So even if a student gets something right, even if a student gets something wrong or half wrong, can you explain that to me? And this can be in small groups or whole groups. And again, this is just explaining, having students think about their thinking. I like to think of it as oral writing. They're kind of writing, they're describing their thinking. This would be a precursor to having your students write a lot in reading and write in math, is to have them explain things and say, well, tell me more about that. Can you explain that to me? And hopefully, other students might be able to hear that, and they might be able to take that reteaching opportunity and learn the skill from somebody else. And it also helps that student who's doing the explaining understand it even better. So hopefully these are a few good tips that you can use, not just in math, but hopefully these can help you with general issues that you have, and just getting in that mindset of thinking through helping all of your students at all times. Here are a few other resources that I wanted to include for you. I was unable to link these articles, frustratingly. So if you do want them, please shoot me an email. But the urgent need for tailored math instruction, that's the research study that is what I was describing. Playful math instruction in the context of standards and accountability, and then avoiding math taboos, effective math strategies for visual spatial learners. So if any of those articles look helpful, I can send them to you. Sorry that I couldn't link them, but just email me. One of my favorite resources that I used when I was teaching is the commoncoreworksheets.com, and it just has hundreds of worksheets, and it has 10 different versions of pretty much every worksheet. You can design worksheets. It comes with a teacher key. That was my favorite thing to use, and so go check that out and see if that's something that can be helpful for you. What I would like to do with this PowerPoint in this video is I will share the PowerPoint on the professional development page that we have created for you. And what I want you to do is, if you have other ideas I would really like you would like to share that you think would be helpful, I would like you to open the PowerPoint and just put them in the notes section down at the bottom. And what I would like you to do is to just list that there, and then we can all just share this and we can just kind of collect some good ideas. I guarantee that each and every one of you is doing something that is brilliant in your classroom that I have never seen or somebody on our staff has never seen. And so I think sometimes we're hesitant to share because we don't want to brag, or we're a second year teacher, so we don't know everything. Well, true, none of us know everything, but share those things, and even if you think they're obvious, they might not be to some people. So let's add those ideas that you have to the notes. If there's specific things in Go Math that you want help with or access to or to know more about, just let me know, and we can find someone to help you look at those more closely. So thank you so much for watching. I have included my cell and my office number, my email. Please reach out to me if you have questions or about any of these things, if you want further resources. I am here to help if you want me to come in and observe your math block, if you just want to sit and look at curriculum, if you want to observe another teacher either on your campus or at another campus, we really encourage that. So do these things, ask questions, become a learner, and get better at this. I know that the first year of a curriculum is hard, and we just kind of embrace that it's going to be a little bit not ideal this year, and that's okay, and we're going to do better next year and the year after that. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.